My name is Santiago Fernandez. I'm the chef at MAZ, a restaurant here in Tokyo, Japan. This is a restaurant produced by Central Restaurant back in Lima, Peru. And the concept of MAZ is basically bringing some of the Peruvian nature and some of the Peruvian biodiversity and take it into the dishes that we're serving. In MAZ, we're serving 9 different ecosystems that we transmit into each dish, and we represent each ecosystem with a different altitude. In this way, the customer can have this experience where they're starting below the sea and going up to the mountains of the Andes. They will get like this sense that they're having a journey through all the ecosystems of Peru. Of course, we're doing this using some Japanese seasonal products, and others are being brought from Peru. Probably 20% of these ingredients are Peruvian, and the other ones are just Japanese. Of course, it makes sense that we use as much as we can that we have in our surroundings here as a restaurant. In Central, the concept and the philosophy is basically the same, where they use the nature as an inspiration to the food that we are making and passing all this biodiversity through the eyes of the customer. We're gonna start now doing the desertic coast. This is an ecosystem that we find all around the coastline of Peru. And that's why we're gonna use some of the ingredients that we find around there, but we're using the Japanese varieties. So the first thing we're gonna do is grab this butternut squash, cut the top part and make a hole inside. This will work as a vessel for our dish. Then the other ingredient that we're gonna use is a sauce that we make using the heads of the botanevi. It's a sauce very concentrated with some Peruvian flavors. We have like coriander, we have garlic, we have ginger. That's what we're gonna put in our pan. We have it over here. So this sauce, we're gonna add the king crab meat, and we're gonna finish the cooking process of the king crab and heat it also in order to serve it in the dish. And we're gonna finish it with just some lime juice. So this we'll put in the bottom of the squash. Some sauce. Then we'll recover the king crab with a cream made with the same squash. We're gonna make a puree, very airy, just to cover all the surface. And we're gonna just get all the borders straight. Now that we have the squash ready, we will use le moulin to make 2 different powders. We're gonna use for one side of the squash the heads of the shrimps that we use for the sauce. What we do is that we roast it and then we dehydrate it so we can have all the flavor of the roasted shrimp, but in a very dried form. In that way we can achieve this powder that we make with that. That's what we're gonna introduce inside of our grinder. And then the other side of the squash, we're using fresh kombu. We also roast it and dehydrate it so we can achieve a powder like this that we're gonna put inside of the grinder as well, and we will use it for the other side. So we introduce kind of the coarse grinded head of botanevi inside of le moulin, and we're gonna use the thinnest grind. Okay. And we serve it like this. The idea is that the people just get into the table and they can grab the shrimp sauce and also with the king crab from the bottom to the top. second dish that we're gonna do using Le Moulin today is gonna be inspired by the family of the Theobromas. The family of the Theobromas is basically the family of the cacaos. We have three main fruits in this group. Cacao. I have here just a picture for you to see how the cacao fruit is when it's fresh. We have it like this, that we can utilize as much as we can of this whole fruit. Then the other fruit we're gonna use is the macambo. It looks like this, and when we have the seed, it looks something like this. Is this one actually? That we're gonna use also in the dessert. The third fruit we're gonna use is a copoaçu. Over here we have it in a dried version. This is the seed of the copoaçu with the pulp outside. The idea of this dessert is that we're gonna use all the three fruits in the same plate and put it in different textures. So we're gonna start first plating the dessert, grabbing a mousse that we make with the pulp of the copoaçu when it's fresh. So that's what we will put over here. Then we're gonna make a pastry cream using the roasted seeds of the macambo. We're gonna mix it together in the same kind of portrait. Then as well, we're gonna use the cacao. We're gonna use the sponge cake that we make, and we mix with the mousse. That's what we're placing over here. We produce our own chocolate in Central, back in Peru, where we have a cacao lab. What we do is that we source only one variety of cacao that is called cacao chuncho. This variety is endemic from Peru, and what we are trying is to preserve this variety. So what we do is that we bring monthly the chocolate that we make in our cacao lab in order to make these kind of desserts. Also with that cacao, we're gonna make this kind of crumble using this cacao chuncho. And here's where the Moulin comes into use. We're gonna add inside of the grinder the shells of the cacao when it's dry. This is what recovers the seed of the cacao when it's fresh. After it's dried, you can just see the texture that it gets, and it's like pretty dried and roasted. What we do is that we just put it inside of the grinder. And the flavor is actually pretty nice. It's kind of fruity and also a little bit toasted. We're gonna put a little bit the coarse, a little bit thicker, so we can have more texture of this cacao skin. And we just recover one part of the dessert. Then we will change to the other fruit. We're gonna use the copoaçu. This is the seeds of the copoaçu after we roast it and dry it. And we're also gonna introduce it into Le Moulin so we can get another texture and also some other notes. This flavor is a little bit more sour and fruity. And we will also grind it on top. Finally, we're gonna use the last fruit of our dessert, of our Theobroma family, where we're gonna use the macambo. The macambo, after we toast it, we get this color and this aroma that is very nutty. We're gonna use the seed of this macambo fruit. Also, we're gonna introduce it. This is a good way to see the versatility of this utensil because, well, we're putting a lot of different elements inside. Finally, we're gonna also grind the macambo inside, on top. To finish our dessert, we will use the mucilage of the cacao fruit. When the juice of the cacao is fresh, we're gonna make a gelatin with this. That's what we call mucilage. So Also, we will add some cacao mucilage on top of our dessert. This will give some acidity and freshness into the dessert. The idea is to utilize as much parts of the cacao and these fruits as we can, so that's why we're using the seeds, the shell, the juice, everything in this single plate.